Our revenue stream comes from the full faith and credit of the US government, and things like crime, things like drugs, activities that are happening and occurring in these mission critical facilities aren't really affected by the sort of the macroeconomic issues. So that's why the consistency of our revenue stream is very attractive to our investors, and it's why we got involved in this space.
Hello, welcome to the REIT Report. I'm your host, Sarah Borgson-Keto. In today's episode, I'm joined by Darrell Crate, co-founder and CEO of Easterly Government Properties, for his insights into the commercial real estate needs of mission-critical U.S. government agencies and how Easterly fits into that picture. Darrell, welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Nice to see you, Sarah.
We're currently in the midst of a shift in how the government functions. Broadly speaking, how is Easterly positioned amidst that ongoing transition?
Yeah, we're uniquely positioned because, as I'm fond of saying, we've been practicing DOGE before DOGE. And as they're looking for efficiency, we've been spending 10 years as a private company finding ways to help the government keep mission critical facilities relevant and helpful to the government satisfying mission. Our portfolio is based on mission critical assets. And when we look at just this last year, the assassination attempt on President Trump was investigated from our FBI facility in Pittsburgh. In Tampa, just last month, they had the strike force bring together a set of Colombian cartel leaders who had been extradited to the United States. These are the types of things that are happening every day in our buildings. And so it's exciting now that the government is open to thinking about ways to be ever more efficient.
Right. And can you talk a bit more about how Easterly is a partner to the GSA, what that has looked like over the years, and what exactly efficiency means in real estate and how you're able to create it?
We have about, over 10 million square feet of real estate in these mission critical facilities for the government. And we're in these buildings every day. We see how they do the work they do. And we are able to suggest ways that we can modify the building or just keep the buildings functioning well so that agents can do their job. Just this last week, each of the agencies submitted to the OMB how they want their footprint in real estate to work for their agencies over the coming years. And one of the strong conclusions that you're going to see across the agencies is that they're moving to less costly parts of the country. Our portfolio is in everywhere but DC. All of our federal facilities are outside Washington, DC, close to the people, close to where mission is happening. And those are the facilities that each of these agencies are regarding as the most important, as the ones, that are fulfilling mission. Now, as we look at facilities, we can see the work patterns of folks that are there. We can see how the lab work occurs and our ability to either increase passageways, increase flow between different labs that are collaborating, or when we look at even our courthouses, how they move each of the three constituencies in a courthouse in and among each other so that there can be efficient use of that courthouse is something we observe. And we consistently go to the government and give them ideas on how to make the productivity of each facility better. We look at, I'll give you another example, as we think we have a Charleston facility that fulfills prescriptions, and we intentionally built some extra space in that facility as this MOP facility was created. And today, because of that extra space, they're able to fulfill 110,000 prescriptions for our veterans each and every day. And the space that they have makes it quite fluid because they're able to fill the prescriptions, package them up, and then use this extra space to set up the shipping so FedEx can come in, take each of the packages out, and get them to veterans the very next day.
And can you talk a little bit more about the geographic dispersion that you have? It sounds like you're all over the country. And I also wanted to ask you about the size of the buildings, what you look for. Is there a typical size? What sort of amenities that you're putting in those buildings?
Most of our buildings are greater than 20,000 square feet, and we have buildings that are several 100,000 square feet. And in each of these buildings, it is equipment, it is meeting rooms, it is special space that allows for these agencies to execute what they do. For example, in our FBI buildings, we have anti-ballistic glass. We have SCIF space, which is special compartmented information space where the walls are several feet thick with concrete. The ventilation has bars in the ducts. There's mesh wiring that's put into the walls so it's impenetrable from an external force that's trying to just spy on the conversations that are happening in those spaces. Most people think in the world that top secret is the highest and most secret, but it's actually compartmented, is what it is. These are documents where there is only one copy, and they need to be read and viewed in special rooms, and they're treated as a very special resource. And the rooms that we have in many of our facilities allow for the digestion, of that information. In our DEA drug labs, we have machines that can take any organic drug and basically tell you the zip code that it comes from on the planet Earth. They can see the drug signature and the mapping that the DEA does. When they find drugs at a crime scene, they can then figure out exactly where those drugs came from, how they got there. And we have a very keen sense of how the cartels move these drugs. All the synthetic drugs, we have other machines in the facilities that can take a synthetic drug, identify the molecule, and then they confirm that drug molecule is on the list of illicit drugs. One of the things that was very interesting to learn as we got involved with the Drug Enforcement Administration, it's this cat and mouse game between folks who are manufacturing drugs and the Drug Enforcement Administration. They're constantly trying to modify the molecule so that it's not on our drug registry and the drug is not illegal. These machines take care of that in a matter of minutes, and with technology, they instantly are outlawed in the United States. So those are just some of the equipment that we have in these buildings, and they are all throughout the country. For us, our real estate is the real estate you always want to own. Government grows in mission as population grows. So as long as folks are having babies, we're going to have demand on these buildings and on these facilities, and for those facilities to continue to grow. So much of our real estate is where the population is growing and folks are moving. That's a smile of the country, from San Francisco down through Texas and the Southeast, and then up the coast, on the east.
And Darrell, to what extent would you say macroeconomic factors today are shaping your performance, especially when it comes to acquisitions and development?
Yeah, we're in a whole set of ways. The most macro of circumstances we're insulated from. Our revenue stream comes from the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, and things like crime, things like drugs, activities that are happening and occurring in these mission critical facilities aren't really affected by the sort of the macroeconomic issues. So that's why the consistency of our revenue stream is very attractive to our investors. And it's why we got involved in this space. I spent some time in politics and got a real insight into how the government functions. And each of these agencies is growing and shrinking, some based on politics, some based simply on population. And we've underwritten the buildings related to the agencies that are population driven. So we don't worry about recession or boom. The earnings that the company is able to generate are insulated from those factors. When we look at the market today for our buildings specifically, because the strength of our leases is significant, we would see competitors over a little over a year ago, especially when money was free. Three guys and a dog could go to a bank and get a loan because they had this very secure lease that they were developing into. And many projects, because folks didn't have a large balance sheet and interest rates went up, the government came to see that folks with small balance sheets were going to fail. So now as we look at our development opportunity going forward, we have a very strong balance sheet. We can be a terrific partner to the U.S. government, and they're starting to use the quality and the track record of a developer in their deciding and criteria for awarding a lease. For us, our competition among the folks who are bidding on development projects is shrinking. Our track record of successfully delivering facilities to the U.S. government continues to grow. One story I tell is that, and this really dovetails our development opportunity with efficiency. We've built 3 labs for the FDA across the country. Each one that we've done, we kept the same team from the government working with us as we developed these labs. That's very rare because the GSA is broken into regions. And so each time we would do a lab, let's say the first one we did on the West Coast, As we built the one in the Midwest, we'd have to re-educate all the folks in the government in order to find efficiencies. And then the lab that we're completing probably by the end of the year in Atlanta is one of the largest FDA labs in the country. And they allowed us to use the same team again. It's no surprise to anybody in private business that we've built each of those three labs cheaper and provided more value per square foot than the last. And there's a fourth lab that the FDA is about to build in Denver. And this team that we were working with became so well educated, the government thought they could go do this on their own. And so they did. And most recently, we've learned of the cost estimates that they have related to the building. And it turns out that the cost of building the building without a private partner was 3.27 times higher than what we could deliver. And it just shows the value of public-private partnership. And what we're seeing from the GSA today through DOGE, they're, of course, looking to cut specific costs, but more importantly, they're looking to improve process. And they're seeing that these public-private partnerships really do add a substantial amount of value to the product that the U.S. government receives. So we're very excited about our development opportunities. The government will continue to grow in these mission-critical areas, and we are positioned to help them deliver a very high-quality product that will serve the government for decades to come.
And Darrell, what can you tell us about Easterly's focus on real estate for government adjacent industries? Can you maybe explain what that encompasses?
Yeah.
And do you see this segment becoming more important to you over time?
So today, just over between 90 and 95% of our portfolio are federal leases outside Washington, D.C. And we have increased our total addressable market to include both state and local buildings, as well as these government adjacent facilities. Each would represent about an additional 15% of our portfolio. Why are we doing that? Because the skill that we have in managing these federal leases and federal buildings, we're going to bring to buildings that look exactly like the buildings we're managing today. But the benefit of having state and local leases, as well as these commercial leases, while they're not full faith and credit of the U.S. government, they do have features like escalations and a triple net, such that we can really manage the cost. And by adding high investment grade states and private companies into our portfolio, we can bring more return to investors, while the debt providers of our company are completely exposed only to full faith and credit dollars of the United States government. These are areas we invest in government adjacent facilities that, again, are growing. Think of the facilities that are on the edge of technology. One building we recently worked on with Northrop Grumman is next to the Buckley Aerospace Research Center. So this is a supported mission. Defending our skies above 20,000 feet is terribly important. And that's what the space agency is going to do. So finding these new mission critical, new technology agencies that are adjacent to the government is exactly what we want to grow in our portfolio.
And Darrell, what are investors asking you about these days?
There's confusion about DOGE. People are wondering if the government is all powerful. And the reality is that many folks think that we can be canceling these firm term leases that we have. And the answer is you can't. They can't. The same signature that's on your dollar bill that makes that currency strong is the same signature that's in our leases. To default on our lease or cancel our government lease is the same as defaulting on the US dollar. And today we've seen our stock price hampered as folks have concerns about DOGE. 95% of our leases are firm term. The weighted average term of our leases is about a decade. And our buildings are quite young, with an average age of about 14 years. All the questions that we get are, can it be terminated? Do you have uncertainty? Do you understand where DOGE is going? And for us, DOGE is a tailwind. We could not be more excited that the government's going to have the opportunity, through better process, to take some of our ideas and move them forward. I'll give you one example. There was a case where we had an opportunity to save the government just about $3 million in one of our projects. And as the leasing agent said to us, we just can't do it because this type of change that you're recommending requires us to go back to not only the agency's head in Washington, but then to the OMB, from the OMB back to the Senate for approval, from the Senate back to the OMB, OMB back to the agency, and finally down to the project. And this person said, for $3 million, this is not going to be top burner for any of those constituents. And I could see it back in 2 to 2.9 years was actually the answer. And the reality is that this agent was doing the right thing for the government by not slowing down the project, because to put it on hold for a relatively small amount of money was insignificant. But what you're going to see with DOGE, and you're going to see as the government becomes more efficient, those things can be fast-tracked through the system. So we can find even incrementally greater savings as we move forward. And we're excited for that tailwind because it gives us every opportunity to show the government how much value we can add as we work as a public-private partner.
And Darrell, we've covered lots of ground, but anything else that you'd like to share about how Easterly is operating today and your strategy?
We're very excited for investors to understand is that we're growing the company at a 3% rate. It's very attractive relative to if you look at office and you look at net lease businesses. We're finding ourselves on this path, this 5-year growth path that delivers this very strong core FFO growth, while also our business and the mousetrap that we've built in order to service the government is having even greater value. So as we move forward, we're just very excited to deliver high value to our shareholders, take the competitive advantage that we've created, and continue to expand our market so that we can help the government and do right for our shareholders as we continue to grow with these cash flows that are principally backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Excellent, Darrell. Thanks for being so generous with your time today.
Well, great to see you. Thank you so much, Sarah, and hopefully see you soon.
Great. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.